it can be available
This meeting is being
for
recorded.
folks who cannot join us at all. And I want to welcome everyone to the first meeting of the Southside United Neighborhood Association. It feels good to say that, huh?
Yes, it does.
So the first thing that I wanted to do um, is just provide some opportunity for welcome news and community updates. I thought it would be good before we start each meeting to allow everyone to share any sort of relevant news or updates that might be good for the good of the order. Obviously, some of the most important updates to share are that our application has been submitted. A little bit later, I'll share the map that the planning office has prepared for us. Um, but first, I wanted to just allow some space for update about the reparations committee. I know that a few of us on this call were going to apply. And Ms. D, do you have a update on that? Did you and Ms. Priscilla handle that? Yep.
D on mute.
No, I don't have any updates on that.
Uh-oh. Did we have anyone on the call that actually submitted the application? I think when we got off the call on Friday, I think Ms. Mildred, you were going to do it as well?
Yeah, I've submitted my application.
Okay.
The last time I heard anything that she was going to forward the applications to the transition team, but I haven't heard
Okay.
anything else. And I think you all heard that also.
Okay. Well, I know she's going to be joining us on the call a little bit later. Brenda is, so we can get a sense of what's up with that. The other thing that I wanted to share is I received a message that an individual from the Citizen Times, Sarah Hanosky, is interested in talking to someone from Southside about the Wall Street pool and other Southside projects. And I wanted to see if there was someone here that would like to talk to them about whatever their questions are.
Yeah, I
Well,
had
let
gotten
me
an
ask-
email from her too. And I was gonna wait till, I'm glad you brought that up in this meeting because that was on my notes. If anybody wanted to speak with her about that, because I always get a lot of emails from folks wanting to speak about the South Side and the Walton Pool and Park, but I want to give an opportunity for someone else from the South Side to have their voice heard in that.
When did she contact you?
Well, I was not personally contacted. I got a text message from somebody else who I guess they contacted and put and shared that information with me, but that was yesterday. Shavonda, when did you get?
I got it on Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know they just did an article. Someone contacted me and I talked with them on last Friday and the article came out. Dee, when did that article come out? Do you remember?
The one that was on the line on Facebook?
Right.
I don't know.
I think it came out Monday or Tuesday. So maybe someone is going to do another one from Asheville Citizen Times.
I saw it yesterday. I don't know when it came out.
I will say that in my experience, organizations that I've worked with who have communicated with the Citizen Times have had mixed results with the way that they honor what it is that we say. So I would just want to make sure that that's top of mind for whoever speaks to this person and that we're clear about what it is that they say. I don't want them twisting words around or printing the wrong kind of thing, that's always very dangerous.
And I agree. And I was going to ask why they had not spoken to someone in Parks and Rec that could answer all of their questions instead of coming to the community, again, we must stay united among ourselves. And
Exactly.
instead of coming to the community, we may not have all the answers.
Right.
Well,
So
it's
why
not
wouldn't they
about
keep it
having
going?
answers. It's
Right.
about your thoughts. And so, they came to me because they know that I advocated to save the pool. So when I spoke from that position.
Okay.
So it wasn't about me trying to provide any answers other than what were my thoughts. And I know even on this committee that we're going to have different thoughts, different opinions, different whatever. So I guess when it comes to who is going to be the spokesperson when we're approached as far as this committee, then that needs to be determined.
Agreed. So one of the things that can be done to handle it is if maybe there's one or two individuals that would be interested in being the person that is contacted, but then perhaps asking that rather than they talk to one person, maybe they talk to a couple of people, or maybe they submit their questions in writing so that collectively answers can be determined. Just a couple of suggestions. I know, Ms. Mildred, you said that you were interested in being a person. Is there anyone else who would want to join Ms. Mildred in a response? Okay. Well, Ms. Mildred, after the call, I'll make sure that you get the information on the
Okay.
person who's asking the questions. All right.
Okay.
Maybe that could be
Let me
one of
make it
those work
clear.
groups.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry,
I'm
Heather.
sorry, Shavonda.
No, I was saying maybe that could be one of those work groups when we get to that section, that could be
Exactly.
a media work group.
Yeah, that feels really good to do that.
Yeah.
So we'll address that in a few minutes in our agenda.
Okay, so let me just say this because I've been interviewed, people come and ask me to be interviewed all the time. And when I speak up, I'm not going to be speaking up for the group. I'm going to be speaking up as I've been advocating and speaking up as a community member. So I just want to put that out there. Me being a part of this, I'm not in agreement. And I know that I hope nobody is asking me not to speak if I'm approached. I just want to make it clear that I'm not going to stop interviewing when people approach me, but I will make sure that I do not connect it or relate it to this group.
I think that that's fair, and I think it's acceptable for individuals to reflect their own individual perspective and feelings, and then perhaps, as Shavonda was mentioning earlier, one of the work groups can be involved with sort of crafting official statements from the group itself as well. So if someone wants to know, well, what does Ms. Mildred think, or what does Ms. Whiteside think, then they can talk to them. And at the same time, we could also have a group that actually says, a group statement or whatever. Ms. Shirley, you have something that you wanted to share? Yeah, she's working on getting the mute button.
Hold your space bar down and that'll help unmute you too.
Let me see. I might be able to unmute her. Nope.
Miss Shirley, just put your cursor over your little microphone and then hit the click button.
I think you're good, Miss Shirley, now. It looks like you're not muted. Oh, I still can't hear her. Good old technology. Do you want to put it in the chat, Miss Shirley? While we're waiting, I'm going to click to the next slide, which shows the map. Ms. Shirley, are you able to, you still working on, she's putting it in the chat for us. So we'll honor Ms. Shirley's question when it comes up. This map, however, is a draft of the map that we talked about at the last meeting, defining the boundaries for the neighborhood association. And that blue dotted line represents the boundaries. What I'll also do is send a copy. I think I can do this, yeah. I'm gonna send a copy of the map in the chat so that people can actually take a look at it on their own machine as well. Any thoughts or comments or questions about the boundaries on this map?
Could I go back to the comment that we made, or that I heard in reference to the press and addressing the press?
Yes, go right ahead, Sheriff.
I would just tell you that when we speak with the press, we can very well say that I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee. I'm speaking as a person, because I think if you don't say that, I think they'll associate you with it, with or without your acknowledgement. So
very true.
I just think we just need to make sure that when we speak, that we make that clear. If we are speaking in reference to the committee, then we speak and say that, or as a spokesperson, if you will. And if we're not the spokesperson, that we make sure that that is very clear to the press.
I agree and I understand, and I will make sure when I speak that I will refer them back to this committee, to whoever the spokesperson may be.
Yes, and that the identity of the spokesperson is something that we can talk about with the work groups and everything. I'll also mention, sometimes the Citizen Times has been, even when individuals have said, this is not an official statement or whatever, things have been twisted and reworded or misrepresented. So I look at the Citizen Times with a side eye, and that's coming from someone whose dad is a journalist. So I just don't trust them, but totally understand how we can work together to make sure that we at least communicate the right message. And yeah, Ms. Shirley was suggesting that a spokesperson be identified from the group. So that's definitely something that we can look at in just a moment. Any additional questions about the map, the boundaries, talking to the Citizen Times?
Just before we leave that subject, could we go ahead and start crafting some statements about what it is we believe as an organization, what we want as an organization, so that when the Citizen Time or anybody come to us, we can refer them back to those statements or whatever. Because as Priscilla has says, I have gotten calls not only locally, statewide, but national wide on certain things. And it is tricky because you have to figure out what it is they're looking, what's their angle they're looking for. And they don't tell you that when they're writing the article. You just have to
Right.
Try to dig into it and say, where are you going as an organization? And so we can also have something instead of a spokesman. We can say, here's our whatever you call them, positions on certain
Position
things
statement.
and position statements, and says we'll send you a copy of that. Then that way you can go back to them and says, this is what I sent you, because each reporter sometimes is, and I can go give you some examples, but I won't do it today. Each reporter's got an angle on something, and they're trying to build their career too. And so sometimes what you're about to say has nothing to do with what they're trying to do. So, but I think if we come up with some statements, is, based on where we're at, Southside United, here's some things that we want happen, or we're willing to fight for, or whatever we want to call it, and let that be, because they're gonna try to get you to say what they want you to say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you'll see in a second, we'll have opportunity to identify some work groups. So I think like a communications work group or something like that would be a good assignment for handling something like that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead because I know a couple of people joined since I sent the map. So I'm just going to send the map one more time in the chat. And I'll also send it out to everybody after the meeting in case folks need it through email or whatever. But this map is what has been submitted as the boundaries for the neighborhood association. And it covers the area that we talked about. So if there's any feedback or comments about it, even later, just let us know and we can make it any adjustments. Yeah. Before moving on to the next thing, are there any other bits of news or information or updates that folks want to share with people who are on the call? Okay. All right. So we'll move forward then, and just wanted to briefly revisit why we're even here on this call in the first place. And when we first started meeting, one of the things that I shared was that there were sort of three goals that were helpful to be accomplished. One was establishing a unified leadership for the Southside community. One is to form a regularly meeting neighborhood association. And the third was to draft a community plan. And the idea that by having this unified leadership organization that meets regularly and works on the community plan and handles other things, then we're able to respond and ensure that the community grows healthily, and we can address the issues that are relevant to the community. So that's the purpose, and one of the things that will be helpful to move forward is determining how decisions are made. And so I wanted to provide a little bit of opportunity to have a discussion about that. I wanted to share a couple of thoughts to guide that decision, in that there's a couple of options for how the leadership could be structured. One would be a centralized leadership, meaning that there's, president, vice president, or individuals who are identified as specific leadership roles. The other would be collective leadership, that says rather than a president or a chair or a director, there's a 3 or 4 person team of individuals who share the leadership responsibilities and operate with the input of the rest of the group. And then in addition, there's the opportunity to utilize consent-based decision-making versus consensus-based decision-making. And just to inform the discussion, consensus, I know a lot of people are used to that term. It's like we all agree, like we have 100% consensus, everybody agrees on the same thing. The reality is that's not always possible. Some folks are not going to agree. And so consent is a way of making decisions that say, you know, I may not necessarily agree with everything, but I don't see a reason to stop it from moving forward. And so I consent to the action, even though I might have chosen something different personally or whatever. And so that's the consent versus consensus. And then lastly, in terms of making decisions, and then I'll open up for some feedback, there's a means of getting input and voting, if you will, which is called Fist to Five. And I've got a diagram that shows how that works, right? So when a decision opportunity comes up, let's say, what are we going to have to eat for meal at the next meeting? If someone puts forward a suggestion, then there are 5 options and ways that people can respond. And 0 fingers or your fist means I am opposed to this flat out. I just don't like, y'all are talking about having pork and I don't eat pork and that would not be a good option for me or whatever. So that's the 0. And whenever anyone shows a fist, that means we need to stop and have a little more discussion to figure out how we can push through that part. Folks can also say, well, you know, I'm not saying a no, but I'm not really excited about this idea, so I'm gonna say a 1 or a 2, is a way of saying, hey, there's a little bit of a pushback against this. Maybe we might wanna explore it a little bit more. But if there's 3s and 4s and 5s, those are ways of saying, hey, I'm in support of the idea and willing to move forward. So Fist to Five is a way of enforcing or sharing people's thoughts about a particular decision. And it's definitely something that can be used. However, I think it's important for this group to make a decision about first, you know, how is the leadership going to look? What will the positions look like? And then how do the decisions get made? So I wanted to share that information and then allow y'all some minutes to share some feedback on what the best way to make decisions for this group would be. Any thoughts around a centralized sort of traditional leadership structure versus a collective leadership structure? When we met last time, we said that we were going to have an interim leadership team, which is currently Ms. D, Ms. Mildred, Ms. Shirley, and Shavonda. However, that was just because folks said, well, I'll do it because we need some people in this space right now. But there needs to be probably some form of opportunity for individuals who may want to step into a leadership role to make that known. There could be opportunity for elections or what have you. How are folks feeling about that process?
Seiko or Seiko?
Sekou.
Sekou, this is John Grant.
Hey, Dr. Grant.
I'm looking at collective, centralized collective leadership. And of course, I guess I am, and I would assume that perhaps most of us are more familiar with centralized leadership. But I'm looking at that collective leadership concept. And the first thing that crossed my mind is how would that work when it comes for who to having a spokesperson for the organization? When the organization get ready to speak, will the 3 people come together and agree on a statement? I'm just trying to process in my mind how that would work out practically in an instance like we've just finished discussing as it relates to having a spokesperson for the organization.
Good question. Good question. I think one of the things that could be a way to approach that would be, and one of the next things we'll talk about is the concept of work groups or committees, if you will. So there could be a committee work group that has multiple members that work together on drafting a statement. And then that statement is shared with the spokesperson, and the spokesperson essentially sticks to the script and says, this is what the group has decided as the statement. I'm just the spokesperson to share this information and, excuse me, to answer any questions about it. I would see as pretty similar to a communications representative with any organization or any government entity that would say, you know, I might be the person doing the communicating, but I'm simply sharing these points. I'm not speaking off the top of my head. I'm sharing what has been collectively agreed upon by the group. So collective leadership could look like, when it comes to responding to requests for information, there is a spokesperson who's able to work from some predetermined responses that have been identified and approved by the communications work group. And the communications work group could have the responsibility of sharing to the full group, this is what we're preparing to say. Is there anyone who has any opposition to this? So I think it provides a little bit of a longer timeline. Of course, you know, you can't just have a spokesperson that freestyles and comes up with whatever they want to come up with, but it could still operate in that collective fashion. It just moves a little bit slower in that sense. Does that help any, Dr. Grant?
When I think about a spokesperson, I'm not thinking about someone who's just kind of free floating, but I'm thinking about a spokesperson who would actually communicate what the group decided. Mm-hmm. And in the example that you just gave, to me, that sounds very good theoretically. It sounds real neat and nice, but I know if you've had experience being interviewed by reporters, whether it's television or newspaper, it's going, I mean, I guess you could just say, I'm just going to read what's on the script and I'm not going to say anything else. But in my experience, then you're going to really get into an exchange with a reporter who, as you know, they want you not to talk from a script. They kind of want you to kind of free, as you said, free flow for the most part. But anyway, I hear what you're saying. I'm just concerned if we're going to be talking from scripts, then I guess we just write stuff and just give it to reporters when they ask questions, or someone will read it. And I've been in many instances where I've read scripts, and then time you get to reading, and you're bombarded with questions. Well, what did you mean by this? And could you say a little bit more about that? And then so the spokesperson in that instance would say, well, I'll take it back to the group and I'll come back later with another answer. I don't know, it's just feeling a little cumbersome to me, but I'm not opposed to collective leadership.
Understood. Any other thoughts from others? Ms. Shirley, I see you talking.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
One of the things I was going to mention also, Dr. Grant, is, I think that from a spokesperson perspective, there's a couple of ways to approach it. There are certain things that are just like facts, and then there are other aspects that can be, trying to figure out how to say it, just there's a little bit of wiggle room or gray area. For example, if the question is, how does this group feel about the direction that the city has taken with Walton Street Park? There might be an official statement that says, this group feels this particular way about it and would like to see this particular thing done. And there still could be follow-up questions and clarification that reinforces that particular answer, but it's still consistent with what the talking points, and maybe it's not even so much a script as much as it's a talking point or a list of talking points. These are the things that we feel are very important to be stated. And then that allows for a little bit of space and a little breathing room for the communications person. Yeah, it can be a little cumbersome, and at the same time, it can also be just as cumbersome to kind of clean up the aftermath of a statement that's not in consent with what the rest of the group feels. So I definitely think it's something that can be worked through. But again, that's the option. It also could just be, hey, there's a spokesperson, this is who they are, and whatever they say is whatever we think. And that's a way to go about it. And that puts a lot of autonomy in the hands of an individual who may or may not say things that are on book with the rest of the organization, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I would not be in favor of that kind of spokesperson. That's not. I'm wondering, is it your recommendation? Maybe there are other comments or questions, but I would like to know if you were making a recommendation at some point once other people have had a chance to comment.
I am in support of whatever feels best for the group. I do think that collective leadership can be a good way to ensure that the most number of voices are reflected. And as you said, Dr. Grant, it does take a little bit extra time. And it's not often what a lot of us are used to in organizations. So it'll take a little bit more work. It'll feel a little awkward initially, but if there's focus and dedication towards it, then it could be a good option. At the same time, centralized leadership with the right leaders, with the right individuals, can also be the best way to go about it. And that sometimes depends on the character and the makeup of the individuals who are in leadership. Collective leadership seems to work best across the board, independent of the folks who are in leadership, meaning that the people who are that are decision makers in collective leadership, there are more voices, and so it doesn't require like one charismatic person, or it doesn't require one person with a whole bunch of experience in this, because the collective wisdom is voiced and shared that way. So it can work. It just has to be something that the group wants to make work, if that makes sense.
I have been a part of collective leadership in the past, and I have seen it work well. In that instance, for me, there were different committees set up. Say, for instance, media, finance, and certain people were on each committee. And then they reported back to the leadership team. That allowed more input from the community. A lot of times it will position people throughout the community, so there would be more than one person that you could go to if you had a concern, and then that person will bring it back to the group. So I know it can work. I think it's more of what you make it and how you set it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the collective leadership with the many subcommittees.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that idea of work groups and subcommittees was actually the very next thing on the agenda. So one of the things that we can do, unless there are people who still want to stick on this particular topic, we can talk about the work groups and create a work group that's tasked with proposing an approach for this, right? So there could be a leadership work group that between now and the next meeting, we'll plan to meet, come up with some suggestions for how the group will make decisions, and how all that stuff will be handled. So that's something that we can look at next, unless there's any additional thoughts around centralized leadership versus collective and so forth.
I would like to hear more about the consent versus the consensus. One of the things that you stated, and it may very well can apply to the collective leadership, the consent versus consensus. I like the fact that, I guess, in the decision making, it's noted that I may not agree, but I don't see a reason to stop from moving forward. This is a new type of, I guess, leadership, and I just would like that I've not heard of it, but I would like to hear more about it if you don't mind.
Sure.
How does it work?
And you hit the nail right on the head, Ms. Priscilla. I mean, it's essentially, so consensus requires everybody to agree 100% on the same thing, and we just know that's not always going to happen. And so consent allows for decisions to be made, even in the case that I'm not 100% in agreement with this decision. However, I don't see a reason to stop it from moving forward. Maybe it could be, again, with the idea of the meal, maybe it could be like, look, y'all are ordering something that I don't eat, but it's okay because I'll just eat before I come. So we don't need to stop the meeting or whatever just so y'all order something I want. I consent to what y'all are choosing to order, and I'm just going to move a little bit differently, but I'm still part of the group, and we're still moving forward. So what that would look like, Ms. Priscilla, is just that the group would agree that when it comes time to make decisions, we would use a consent-based decision-making process, which, like I shared a moment ago, this fist to 5 option is one way of saying, okay, well, let's vote on this, 0 to 5. What are you feeling? And then we can look around the room and everybody can see, well, we got a whole bunch of 3s. So it looks like we're ready to go. Or we got a whole bunch of 0s. You know what? We're not ready to move on because there's too many people who are not really in support of what it is. So let's continue the discussion and figure out how do we get to a point where there's fewer 0s and more, 2s and 3s and greater. And that's just the process of the group itself saying, this is how we make decisions, versus saying, all in favor, raise their hand, all those opposed, say no, or whatever. Does that make sense?
It does. And in addition, then the spokesperson, when speaking or making, I guess the statements, they probably would say the majority of the group consented, instead of saying the group agreed or the group want this, because if the group as a whole did not agree, then I don't think that statement should be made.
Agreed.
Hello,
And
can
so
you
that's,
hear me?
that's
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Who is that?
I'm old school. And I think what you're saying is great, but we're trying to get organized, trying to get going. And I think we'll be spending a lot of time trying to get consensus and all. I was thinking maybe we should go ahead and organize with officers, follow Robert rules of order, and then train as we go. Because in the beginning, we said we want to go ahead and get organized, and it seemed like we're slowing up the process because things are moving in the community. And I think when you have officers or board and then have committees, we will get more done. Because see, we're gonna spend a lot of time. This is just my opinion.
thank you for sharing that. Are there other thoughts from others? Either way.
One of the things I want to say is that in the last month or so, I've been talking to a lot of younger people, and Robert's Rules of Orders is not their way they do business. And so as we think about where we start at now on this organization, and as we bring in another generation behind us, they're going to struggle with it, the Robert's Rules of Order. And so I'm in favor of, the consensus and the consent agenda is to working through things, because I'm thinking about later on. Yeah, we're going to spend a lot of time, but we spent a lot of time getting to this point where we're at now. And so I don't see any problem with spending some more time to make sure we get this right as best we can as to how we're going to make decisions, so that when we bring on somebody else, they will have a good feeling of where we had it, what we want to do.
And what I can also share is, Ms. Shirley, I definitely understand your perspective about Robert's rules, and I can say from my experience, Robert's rules can be just as time consuming. If you don't, like, if there's a motion on the floor, do you have to vote the motion, and has it been seconded, and there's a motion on the floor, so we can't talk about anything else, and all we do, so it often requires like a parliamentarian, someone who really understands Robert's rules to make sure that everything is being operated in a particular way. And historically, practices such as Robert's Rules of Order have prevented Black communities and communities of color from organizing. It's been a way that power can be kept from communities because they don't know Robert's rules. Well, you didn't get a second, you didn't make a motion of this, so you can't be on the agenda or whatever. So it can be just as confusing. However, what I might suggest, and this is the next part of the agenda, which I think can help us move things forward. We're talking about committees or work groups. And I suggested a few on this screen here that I'll read out loud in a moment. But one of the things that we could look at is just having a governance or a leadership work group whose job it is as a small committee to have this discussion and then bring a suggestion back to the overall body for.
May I say something?
Absolutely, Ms. Shirley.
The government and the country and most business organizations, and hopefully we're going to be a business organization, use Robert Rules of Order. Our students, young people need to know Robert Rules of Order, whether they use it or not. And that's how another way we're getting messed over. Not knowing the majority of how to use Robert Rules of Order. We need to learn how to work both ways. So I wouldn't strike Robert Rules of Order out completely. Because most organizations and businesses, and even you look at the city government, the Congress and Senate, I don't know what they're doing, but Robert Rules of Order. And that way, I'm just old school, and I like consensus and consent and all, but that's what's wrong with our young people now. They got to learn both ways so they know how to manipulate and be able to function in the country. And they talk about owning businesses, starting businesses. Well, you need to know all of that. So I don't think that should be left out. This is just my personal opinion. And whatever the group decide, I'll go along with it. But I know it cut down confusion. And then we need to train them, have meetings, how you do it. So when they get in other meetings, they'll know what's going on and won't be waiting for consensus. They need to learn both ways. I'm through.
Well, thank you, Ms. Shirley. And it sounds like you might be a good candidate for this this governance work group. But yeah, I wanted to. So the idea of work groups is just a way of getting things done by saying these are topic areas that we need some muscle, we need some energy to make some decisions about, right? And so I threw together a few suggestions just based on where our conversations have taken us thus far, and what might be needed for the success of this organization. Obviously, a governance or leadership group to look at, like, what are our bylaws? How do we make decisions? What are the leadership positions? How are people chosen? Like, that could be the work of one particular committee. A public safety committee that's looking at addressing things in the neighborhood, such as traffic and crime and emergency preparedness. How do we respond to things, whether it's snow or whether it's a natural disaster or whatever. Economic development. I know, Ms. Mildred, you've talked a lot, and I know also Mr. Bell's mentioned about economic development and business opportunities. So that could be a work group that looks at how do we develop these things for the community. Land and property, in terms of looking at, we have a lot of people whose houses might be in a state where folks are trying to buy their houses and gentrify them. How can we, as an organization, help to protect those people, keeping their homes and their property? Capacity development. How do we do training? How do we bring in more resources? Community plan, youth development, food security, like the garden, community engagement. These are all different topics that could be areas that folks can work on. And so I wanted to see what others thought about which work groups were essential and which work groups they might want to be a part of. Let's not everybody jump at once.
I'm just wondering, do we have a mission statement yet in terms of what, maybe you're going to get to that, I may be getting ahead of you. It just seems to me there's a lot on the screens. I'm looking at my screen, and what I'm thinking is that the association, what is that name again? The neighborhood, Southside Neighborhood Association?
Southside United. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess I want to be clear about a mission statement, what it is that we are focused on trying to accomplish, and of course it may encompass all of what's on the board. But that would be my question.
Sure, and I think that could, again, these topics are simply suggestions, but yeah, the mission, vision, governance, all of those things could be handled either by one committee, or you could have one group of individuals say, we're just going to focus on what the mission is, putting it into writing and coming up with a statement of that. Is really just a way of divvying up the work. Like, there's a lot of work that needs to be done by a new organization such as this. And we've got, 15 people on the call. So, it's a question of how do we get folks who are on the call to express an interest in handling some of this work in one way, shape, or form. And yes, Dr. Grant, having those things identified is very important. And so it could either be done by a small group that does the work and brings it back to the large group for input, or it could be a topic for the large group that's handled at a future meeting. So that's kind of the point of this part of the agenda right now, figuring out what's the best way to approach it and who wants to deal with that. It sounds, Dr. Grant, like you might have an interest in helping to shape that language.
Not necessarily. I asked the question because I didn't see a mission or vision statement. Although I know in bylaws, you may have a statement of purpose or even some sort of mission statement, but I just didn't see it. And I guess my concern is in my orientation, in my experience, you set out to do so much and you get so spread out. And if you're not focused on and clear about what your mission or your purpose is, you just kind of neutralize your effectiveness, and people get real pulled in all sorts of directions and discouraged and burned out. So I guess what I was kind of fishing for is maybe some focus and clarity about what our mission, vision, purpose, however you want to call it. I know these words have different connotations and in different contexts, but that's what I was kind of looking for before I get spread out into all these other different things. Because this is a lot of stuff on this board. I'm on this agenda, and I know my
and it doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to all be tackled at one time either. That's the other thing. There is a lot of work that needs to be done, but we can only do what we can do, right? These are, again, just suggestions for how to approach it, and intended to start the conversation. Siobhan, I see you got your hand up. Something you want to ask or share?
Yeah, I kind of hear where Dr. Grant is coming from, and what is our vision and mission. I think from the 3 meetings that we had, and trying to come up with a name, like that was a lot of work, and we are Southside United. And so what does that mean when we say, Southside United? And so, creating that vision and mission so that we'll know how to move forward, in this community plan, and then trying to develop those governance, the bylaws and that leadership. So until we unified, come up with something, but I hear him and I understand, and I'm for that too. What is our mission and vision?
Thank you. Ms. Priscilla, I see you, you want to answer something as well?
I just wanted to say, hold on, I had to plug my computer up. In reference to the name of the group, the Southside United, and you keep mentioning about, having certain ones who will lead certain portions of it or certain roles. Since we're just starting out, and in an effort to keep moving, keep, progress going, why not? You say you have 15, 17 people on the line. In order to, in a way that we can promote unity, why not allow individuals to submit what their vision is as far as this group, what their vision is, what they would like to see the mission be. And then you have a collective group of ideas. And then once, I guess, you get the committee of the group itself who will come up with the mission statement or the vision statement, then they have some other input ahead. I mean, they already have it because we, we would have already submitted our thoughts and our input into it.
What do others think about that?
Seiko?
Yes.
I thought we went over those when doing the 3 meetings. We made a list in that last meeting.
We did identify things that were important to all of us. Yes. So some of the things that you're mentioning, Ms. Priscilla, have already happened. It hasn't been formulated into actual statements, and we didn't have, we haven't had everybody present at every meeting. So there is room for addition to that. But the group we could use that information as a starting point
Right.
and build upon that as well. That's definitely an idea.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't think that you had anything. That's why I made that suggestion.
Yeah.
So other thoughts about, I guess there's a couple of ways to approach this. One could be, hey, let's figure out what work groups we're going to have. The others could be, well, let's just focus on some key things for starters, like bylaws and mission and leadership positions. I mean, those are, like we talked earlier about having a communications person. How do we identify who that person is, and what do we tell that person what their responsibilities are, and then also what kind of accountability methods are in place. Like if the communications person, just for example, is not behaving in the way that the group agrees is helpful, what can the group do to ensure that there's accountability? And these are all things that need to be identified and need to be defined and have not been. And so one of the ways to approach that is by having a group of individuals say, okay, we're going to take this information, we're going to meet, we're going to come up with some ideas to share back with the group. Is that sound of interest to anybody?
Mr. Seiko,
Yes.
now I do have a question for you. Okay, I'm just trying to understand, and I'm just observing. I'm just trying to understand, okay, so the name that y'all came up with, and it's so confusing. It'll be so confusing for the community because you have everything Southside Advisory Board, Southside Organization, Southside this and Southside that. And it's almost like I feel personally, and this is my own opinion, and I'm speaking for myself and myself only, that it seems like everything is it's almost like, let me see, it's no unity, you know. I think it's no room for my age group to be able to participate. Usually, and I'm just gonna be real, usually it's like the same people want to hold power. And they want to speak for the community. But let's have this on the record. They're not speaking, they don't have the voice for the community. They're not speaking for everybody. So I just want that on the record.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And what I would say is that this is the opportunity to change that. And I'm grateful that you're present. And there is definitely space for all ages to be involved in this work. And the goal is to have unified representation and input. So I think that if you're feeling that there is an opportunity, there is a need for other voices to be heard, then this is the space, this is the platform, this is the time for your voice and for your leadership and for your input to be included and to be part of it. There definitely is a need for that, and I would hope that we could count on that for yourself and others that might not have traditionally been involved in these spaces. I know personally that's something that I've wanted to see for a long time. And so this is I would say an opportunity to make that a reality.
Because I just feel that we are the ones that get left out. And we never be able to be in the planning process. And this has just happened from, look like generation to generation, where it keeps repeating itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we still haven't gotten nowhere.
And yeah, and the hope is that this is a way of doing things differently. And so, you know, using that energy as motivation to say, you know, again, just a moment ago, you know, been asking folks who wants to step up, who wants to be helpful in shaping this and ensuring that it operates differently. And we're having people step up and say, I'll do this, or I'll represent this, or I'll be on this committee, or this is an area that I'm interested in. You know, if getting the voices of a younger generation, of a more diverse cross section of the community is important, then that definitely is a need, and that is something that that would be great to have people working on and bringing more folks to the table. And ensuring that they feel included and their voices are heard, and that they're seeing something positive come out of all of this.
And it's still that, even it breaks down when I mentioned the communication, that you guys need to have more effective communication. And it's still just like I receive a few emails and then I don't even get the other ones. And so it's just like, I wasn't even going to get on this call, but I know if I hadn't to make my voice heard. So those are, since you say accountability, those are the type of things that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Are you willing to be involved in helping this this group do a better job at addressing them and making sure that the word gets out more consistently and more effectively? Because that's a definite need.
Right now, you know, I just want to observe, and I do my best in communicating, but at the same time, you have to have that support.
Seiko, I'm going to say, this is Priscilla, and I agree with what Keita has said, but I will say, let me just say this. In reference to all the different groups that we've had, like the Southside Advisory Board, the Southside Association, I can't speak for Mr. Hardy, but I do believe that the Southside Association was established to keep the Southside community united. And then the Southside Advisory Board was established to work with Housing Authority to save now named the Editing Center. But, you know, I'm willing to be a part of this. I like the fact that the group is named Southside United. I just want to say that we really, and I hope that we can come together, be united, and form this association so that we can have a stronger voice throughout the city and the county. You know, we understand, and I'm going to say me, I ain't going to speak for anyone else. I know that we all have different opinions. We're not going to agree on everything, but if we can agree that we're uniting to come together to form this group and to take responsibilities for certain work groups and keep that in the forefront, I believe we can press forward and we can do some things. We know that, you know, Certain people want certain things, certain people want to lead, and that's fine. You know, for me, I'm gonna say, I know I'm outspoken, but I'm willing to step back and fall in and be supportive wherever wherever I need to be in order to make this work. I don't want to just complain. I'm tired of hearing complaints and then nobody wants to do anything. Oh no, you know, we got to come together. Dee and I ran into the same thing when we were part of this Southside Advisory Board. We felt so lonely at times out there, our mouth going, we jumping up and down, going up to the different meetings. We look around and it was very few other community members behind us. That's the way we felt. But can we at least be supportive? Be supportive within this group, Southside United, support each other, but knowing that we're not gonna always agree, and let's just press forward to get this organized where we will have a strong voice together. And like I said, wherever I can be most useful, you know, I'm willing. I don't have to be in the lead. I don't have to be the one speaking up. I don't, you know, I'm tired of all of that. I just want to be a part of something that is organized and that have a strong voice. And that's just my opinion. So wherever I can be most supportive, just let me know I'm here.
Thank you, Ms. Priscilla. Any other?
Priscilla, I do. Priscilla, I feel the same way. Keita spoke up about the young folks. As far as myself, I consider myself an elder, and I would love to sit back and be supportive and see our young adults come in and work with us on Southside United. That's where the name come from, is bringing all these organizations together up under one umbrella. And I would love to see that. I don't need to be in leadership or anything else. I've always been a kind of person that is a supportive person. So, you know, if you can bring the young people in, I've tried, not only with this group, but I've talked to people prior to this group. As Priscilla mentioned, when we were doing the Southside Advisory Board, we reached out to the community several times and could not receive support. So what you do, you continue to move forward. You can't stop, you just move forward. So I'm willing to work in any capacity that I need to work in.
Thank you, Ms. D. Any other comments? And I'll share that, you know, it's there's a lot that needs to be done. And as you know, Dr. Grant mentioned earlier, you know, look on this screen in particular, there's a whole bunch of suggested areas for work groups. And it can feel overwhelming. It can feel daunting. The best thing to do is to just break the work up and to move forward. It's not going to get done by itself. And we might not be able to do everything in one meeting. Some things might take weeks or months to get through, but it's really important to put some energy and attention towards these things. And so Miss Shirley, you want to say something? I think you're muted.
I suggest that we take the list that we formed at the last meeting, send the list out to everybody or the advisory committee we have right now, come up with a mission statement and a vision, and then share it with the group, and they can add to it or take away. Because if we're gonna get a 501c3, apply for that, or any grants, the first thing they're gonna ask, what is your mission, what is your vision? And also I would say get a advisory board, and it can be a mixture, young or old, at least get started. And so we can move forward because there are grants and other programs coming out. And if we want to do something in the community, maybe you can ask Brenda, I guess she's still online, what she thinks, because there's certain pieces that we need to put together in order to get the funding that we need to get started to make some changes. That's a suggestion I have.
Thank you, Ms. Shirley. Ms. Priscilla, did you have, I see your hand is still up. Did you have something else you wanted to share?
No, I'm sorry. Let me take it down. I'm sorry.
You're good. So here's one other, thank you for that, that comment, Ms. Shirley. I think this is a good time to kind of move into this next thing just to help the conversation a bit as we're talking about money. So Southside Rising has $9,300 that can be available for this organization to keep this momentum moving forward. One of the ways that could be done, and again, I would leave the decision of how to do that to this group, but one of the things that could be done is that money could be used for some sort of a community coordinator or liaison position. If you said, for example, about $20 an hour for 30 hours of work per month, then somebody either on this call or someone who's not on this call, that could be something that they are being paid to ensure that people know about when the meetings are, people are attending, that the agendas are together, like all those sort of things, as well as money for food and childcare meetings, or it could be done in a different way. That is like seed funding to get this group going until the point where there is the ability to apply for other funds from other sources, as Ms. Shirley was saying. But what is needed is, you know, some leadership and people saying, hey, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to be involved in this way. I'm willing to take on this responsibility or whatever. So just wanted to share that that is something that is available and an option right now at this minute. Brenda, is there anything that you wanted to share as you've listened? Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry to be a little late. We had a Human Relations Commission meeting at 5:30. I can't see myself. I don't know what happened to the thing, but it keeps going black. So anyway, I think that's a great idea. There's some tools that we can help with as a city. We're working on your neighborhood registration. The map has been updated. Okay, cool. I copied you on that. And then we need to kind of look at that. And then planning and urban design can create a mailing list, like a list of all the people within your boundary. I would suggest, you know, since you have some seed money, going ahead and communicating with everybody that there is a neighborhood association now. And then we can work with you about, you know, other grants or other things that we hear about. We're glad to be supported any way we can.
Thank you. Any other thoughts? And, you know, Keita, I'm curious, does the money to support, you know, community engagement and all for like an individual, do you think something like that would be helpful for changing the narrative that you shared about the younger folks not knowing and not enough people being engaged, or the other things that could be done?
I think that could be a start. But at the same time, yes, more stuff can definitely be done. Um, I know where I had a past experience where, you know, I wanted to take the kids from the Southside community to Carowinds because some of the kids never been to Carowinds. I remember that I did a presentation, did a proposal, and went in front of the board, and I pretty much got shot down because I didn't have insurance. So didn't nobody tell me. So that's just a learning process. Didn't nobody tell me that I had to have insurance on the kids, you know. So therefore, you know, that just spoiled everything. I had volunteers of parents that was willing to participate in everything, you know. So I've just learned from past experience that it's got to be a healing process first to gain the community's trust, especially in my age group. It needs to be more, but that is a good start, but it could be more money as well.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
I do know that the city has plenty of money. So it could definitely be more money.
Indeed. And the thing about the more money, and because that was one of the things I was going to mention, you know, first of all, there are some things out there that could be available to this organization. And here, there are 3 of them that are right now. So Brenda, what's the status of, I remember we were talking before Roger left about that 5,000 for engagement around Walton Street. Is that still a thing, or?
You talking about the contract that you did with
Yeah,
Sandra Travis?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's still a thing. They're just
Okay.
waiting for you. I know in the time that we talked with you before COVID and everything, you had a lot more help and then a lot changed. So that's still a thing.
Okay, so that what Brenda and I are talking about is that there's 5,000 from the city of Asheville to support engaging the community around what can happen at Walton Street Park and Pool. And that I think is in addition, Brenda, to what 50,000 that Pete was talking about, or?
Not sure about any other money. The only other money I
Okay,
know is the 500,000 that Park put aside
that's what I meant.
for some updates to Walton Street Park after they do, you know, community engagement down there.
Right,
I'm
right.
not sure about the 50.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think that's what I meant to say. I just left one of the zeros out.
Oh, I got you.
Um,
Yes, it's a $500,000. Yeah.
And speaking of, since you got on Walton Street Park, I was a part of that process, and we were broken into groups of 20, and the city supposed to got back with the community, and they never did. They had supposed to update their website, and I had spoke with Miss Sandra about that the website wasn't updated. I had spoke with her occasionally on 5 times. And then all of a sudden, at this last meeting that they had, she said that there was a security breach, and that's why it wasn't updated. But I tell you, you have to be true to the people. You have to say whatever it is, say it up front. I would respect you more for you just to tell us the truth than to tell us a story. And we still haven't got back together about the Walton Street Park.
And this is an opportunity.
Do you want to speak on that, or would you want me to? You want to speak on that?
I mean, I was just going to say this is an opportunity. I understand that there has been less than ideal handling of the situation and in the past. And what I can say, based on what we discussed this evening, there's money that we have available to support what this group is doing. This group um, uh, is in a unique position to take action on some things. Yes, there need to be some decisions made about how his work get done or whatever. But this is the opportunity to be the change, to move differently, and it will require people stepping up and saying, "Hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to follow up on." And in certain places, we have money that's available right now that can support that. And then as we move across additional steps, we can be able to access larger pots of money because, as you said, Keita, there is lots of money out there that can be available to this organization. But in the state that we're at right now, we're not able to take advantage of it because we still need to figure out, well, how do we make decisions? How do we get work done? What's our vision? All of these things that we've been talking about. And how do we make sure that we get the word out to community? All of these things need to be handled in order to make sure that we accomplish these objectives. Brenda, were you gonna share something as well?
No, what I was gonna say is, the goal was to get back out with all of you about Wall Street Park. And unfortunately, staff comes out thinking, we've been given clear direction about one thing, and then sometimes that changes. So there still is going to be outreach with you all. I know people use COVID as the excuse for everything, but COVID is going on a lot longer than we all expected. So the goal for now, and that's what I was excited about your neighborhood association, is that now they can come to a more organized group and then spread out, where you can help outreach into the greater community. Nothing's going to be done without talking to the community. So I do want to say that.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask Brenda,
Yes, sir.
something you said that connected back with the young lady. I don't know what the young lady's name was speaking earlier. I believe it's Lindsay.
Yes.
Keita Lindsay.
Yeah. Okay, well, I heard her express a concern about something to the effect about word not getting out of the community, not knowing. And I heard Ms. Mills mention that we need to make sure we get communication out to everyone in the Southside neighborhood. So, if I heard that correctly, so my question is, and this may be something that's already in place, do we have a mailing list of all the residents in the Southside neighborhood, and are they on our email or mailing list? At least to make sure that we're making the effort.
Right.
Everybody in Southside is being contacted and kept in the loop in terms of what we're trying to do.
That's a great question. I will be having planning now that we've gotten your map, a draft of your map done. Planning, one of our planning urban designers can pull a list of names and addresses for you. And like I said, with the seed money that Sekou has, we can look at creating maybe a letter or something that goes out to the community, maybe some signs that says you now have an association with a QR code. So they can either use it with their phone or text you or whatever. But we can get a lot of that to you so you can just start that campaign.
Well, I would put a lot of stress on the importance of doing that, because in my experience, there are always going to be people who are going to show up and say they didn't know anything about it. They were not notified, and you all went on without me, without us. I guess in every effort I've been involved in, you're just going to expect that to happen. So
yeah,
I was thinking if we had that mailing list and make sure that we are sending mailing. Not everyone has email.
yes, exactly.
Fortunately or unfortunately, but if we had a mailing list and make sure that we had a steady stream of communication going out to the Southside residents, at least we can kind of nip that anticipated blockage in the bud, because you can anticipate people coming saying they didn't know anything about it and they were left out. It happens in every effort I've been involved in.
Absolutely.
Well,
And I-
Miss Rebel Grant,
Yes, ma'am.
now I do know that a lot of the community didn't know that the swimming pool was going down there to the Grant Center, that the decision had already been made. And that was a part of, the city was supposed to get back with us because we was all the way through this through the blueprint. And when they divided us into groups and for us to share our ideas of what we wanted, and it was just like, okay, then we got to a standstill. I'm not going to blame this on COVID. I'm not going to blame this on COVID. This happened before COVID. And therefore, people need to be held accountable. And the people that you go back and ask, they no longer work for the city, like Mr. Roderick or Sandra. So
you took the thought right out of my head as you were talking. I was thinking that things do go wrong, you know, there are turnovers in positions, people leave and new people come, and you know, things can fall through the cracks. But I think as Ms. Coleman's been saying, there's an opportunity before us now to begin to try to address those sorts of issues. And things will go wrong. I mean, there'll be some missteps. But I think we just have to address those missteps, not in an accusatory way to blame people, but in a kind of an inquiry way to say, how can we correct this going forward? That would be my concern. Let's focus on how we can correct things going forward. But I just leave it there, how we correct things going forward. Because I'm here to help. I'm not looking for any position. I got all the positions I can handle. I'm here to help. I don't live in the Southside community. I have members in the community, and I've been invited by members to be of a help. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help. I'm not looking to be no spokesperson for anything. I'm not looking for any position. I just want to be helpful in whatever way I can.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question for Ms. Mills.
Yes, sir.
At the last city council meeting, it was part of the consent agenda about the grant center, the plans, and so it was a contract was let to some construction firm, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's settled. So it sounds like now we need to start concentrating on the Walton Street part of the thing. All of
Right. And Pete, we've been meeting with Park, the Preservation Society, you know,
right.
between the Preservation Society and Historic Resources here at the city. They would like to designate that pool house and the pool as historical. Now, it does not mean it cannot be altered, but right. Before it can be, anything can be done, we need to do that designation. So we're all excited about that. There is $500,000 put to the side for that. I actually was going to bring the matter up during our budget cycle to see if we could get more money. And then totally whatever they do at the park is going to be up to the community to say what they would like in that park.
Right. Okay.
One of the things that you are doing and having this Southside, or it's very difficult for anybody, not just a city or a county or anybody. If we come into a community and there's not a cohesive body to talk to, so say for instance, what they're getting ready to build Nasty Branch. There's some interpretive signs that are going with that. You're going to be the body that she brings this to, right? We start with you, and then we take your lead on how we get this more of this information out in the community. I just sent the email to Videla in planning to run that list for you all. So as soon as I get that, I will share that through your new email address. And then, you know, yeah, And we can fight about what did and didn't happen, but we're moving forward and it's gonna get done. We got to, because we can't have
Okay.
no more summers where kids don't have a pool to swim in. So,
So Brenda, let me ask you a question. You
Okay.
just mentioned those
ma'am.
interpretive signs. Are you talking about the signs along the trail?
Yes, ma'am, the ones that you and a few others have been helping her with. Now, they're not done. It's not done. She's bringing a draft of the size, some of the information she's gathered to get some feedback and to get more information. So,
Okay, yeah, because
um,
that's,
yes,
this
ma'am.
is like the second go round with that.
Yeah,
What,
but we're
six?
moving. It's moving
Yeah,
this.
that's what I'm
But
saying. 5, 6 years ago,
yeah,
somebody was paid to do that. Now here we are again, and she's already talking to people and developing that signage, but you're saying it's not going to happen until you all come and talk to community. See,
absolutely.
that's what's frustrating and sort of confusing, because we're told one thing and then from behind the scenes stuff is already moving.
Well, here's the
Before,
deal. She hired a graphic designer. You talking about that lady you talked about, that graphic design? What's her name? Irene.
right, she's
She wasn't.
already,
That was not her place to talk to anybody about anything. So Lucy has now talked to her and said, no, 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 no. That right. And so we're all going to be meeting with her soon, so I can talk to her. Like, what you do is create suspicion, because they thinking one thing and you're out there asking them something else. So let me say this: the Greenway is going to be built. They're starting in May, so she wants to come and talk to the association about the Greenway and what you can expect. The signs won't be up for another year, so we got time to do. She'll bring some drafts. We got time to take more information, more history. No, it's not a done deal. So,
no, what
yeah,
I'm saying is you're telling us that, you're doing the interpretive signs and you're going to come to the community, blah, 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 but you've already gone out and hired a contractor, and so I guess earlier
well,
someone
we
mentioned
hired
about,
no, let's back up. We hired a person to interpret what the history is. They've not done all the signs. It's just mock-ups of what history has been gathered. And there's also a historian who will be writing stuff up for you. Like whatever you give them, they're going to be writing that up. You will approve everything before it goes up.
I
Does that
understand
make
what you're
sense?
saying. I understand exactly what you're saying, but the point I'm
Okay.
trying to make is the city has already planned on what they're going to do. You go out, the city goes out and hire whoever they hire, whether it's contractor, someone marking up, and then you come to the community and say, this is what we're wanting to do, and we want to receive your feedback. I'm thinking the community, and I can't speak for everyone, but where it's causing a lot of mistrust and animosity or whatever is, I'm gonna say me, we don't see transparency. It's like, and maybe we don't supposed to see it up to a point. You all, you do the city plans, and that's something that we as a community need to become more involved in and accessing those city plans and reading, so that we will know what's in the plan and what's getting ready to come down the pipe or be implemented. And so we won't feel like something has happened and we were not made aware
Right.
that it's happening. That's just the point I'm trying to make.
Okay.
So we got a responsibility too, as far as a community. We got a responsibility to get a hold of those city plans and read them, so that we will know what is in the plan, or the thoughts that are in the plan. And so we can be kind of, I guess, ahead of the game before it's implemented.
Right. And you're making all the right steps in creating this neighborhood association. So for
Okay.
example, we, I have a list of African Americans, but anytime I send anything out to like neighborhood contacts, right? Or the city sends something out with the e-news, immediately Helen, who lives over here in East End, she sends it out on their distribution list to their community. So there's lots of ways to get, information out, and y'all are taking great steps, and we're going to help you as much as we can to get contact information, because the more you can get out in the community, and you know how big Shiloh is. Shiloh might have, what did she tell me? 165 names, and that doesn't cover all of who Shiloh is. So they're continually adding names to the robocall and doing things. And so it's going to be steps, but we're with you on that.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks.
Go ahead, Ms.
Hello.
Shirley.
I'm willing to help with the mission and vision statement. I will help with getting the mailings out to all the neighborhood community, individuals, and I will even design a logo. I don't want to be president. I'm participating because I love this community. I've been over here over 50 years, and I'll do what my part, but I'm not trying to take a leadership position. But if I can get emails and addresses of those who don't have email, I will get the letters out, or somebody send me the information, I'll get it out. And that could be my part. I want to see us succeed. And like I said in the beginning, I didn't come seeking out because I have a lot of responsibility already down the street. So, but I'm willing to help us with the mission statement, vision, and we get it back to the committee or to the body so everybody can approve it. I'll work on a logo for you so we can get going. And that's how I can share my part if you want my help.
That sounds great, Ms. Shirley. Thank you very much for offering that. Is there anyone else who would like to step up and and support in some sort of way?
Could you put the list back up, Mr. Coleman?
Sure. Let's see. This is what you were speaking about?
Yes.
Okay. And again, these are just suggestions. We don't have to have as many. We don't have to have them all at the very beginning. They don't have to, some of them can be condensed or consolidated or whatever, but just thoughts, ideas.
I would love to help on the public safety. I think that's very important for our community. With the traffic, the crime, I would love to work with that group.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. D.
Mr. Coleman, if you put me down for public safety and community engagement, please.
Done. Thank you very much, Ms. Mildred.
Thank you.
Mr. Coleman, since you already kind of semi-invited me, I'm willing to work on the governance bylaws.
Thank you so much.
I'm willing to work with others on that.
Keita, are you still on the call? Would you be open to working with Ms. Shirley and others on community engagement and making sure that more members of the community and more of the younger members of the community are aware of what we're doing?
Yes.
Awesome.
This is Roy Harrison. I'm already on some food security and food policy council type committees with the city and the county. So I'm willing to be a part of that food security for this organization committee.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
I would like to also work with youth development.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mr. Coleman, I would like to do the public safety and also the youth piece.
Thank you very much, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Sekou?
Yes.
I just want to add that as part of your neighborhood meeting every month, I'm gonna connect you with with your neighborhood email to APD Community Engagement. They will attend your meetings every month and talk with you about crime in the community, hear any feedback your folks have. They want to just, that's what they do. You know, I think you've heard of Captain Mike Lamb.
Mhm.
Met him. And then your neighborhood services person will come to your meeting, and then equity plans to attend your meetings as well.
Okay.
So we will be 3 points of contact from the city that if, you know, any of these working groups need us for anything, just let us know.
Okay, that sounds great.
And I'll send that in the
And
email.
beautiful. And hopefully our meeting next month will be in person. And I've already been in communication with Clarence. I think he's going to handle the food for us. So we should have a nice meal to get some work done. It would be great if we could have, folks invite, a few additional folks to join us at next month's meeting and um, bring some more bodies to the table, some more voices into the room. Are there any additional comments or questions? I want to respect everybody's time. We said we were going to be done at 8, and it's a little bit beyond that, but I'm really appreciative for the discussion that we've had.
May I suggest that the group consider adding a committee, maybe, I don't know if it's training and development or research training and development, something of that sort?
Could that possibly be under capacity development? What are you thinking, Ms. Priscilla?
Staying on top of like maybe the city plans, bringing back information to the group if it's any kind of specific training that the group would like, like Mrs. Whiteside mentioned Robert's Rule, stuff like that to further empower the committee,
Yeah,
the
and I think
association.
that's generally considered capacity development.
Okay.
And so looking for how do we do trainings and things of that sort, because there are funds that could be available. And capacity development could also be like a grant writing thing, like how do we bring money in to support doing additional stuff and trainings and all of that stuff. So yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Any final thoughts, words? There's a few folks I haven't heard much from. Ms. Raynetta, I see you're on the call. Shavonda, anything to share? Mr. Hardy, before we get going?
Hey, this is Renita. Can you cover what economic development and what land property to do?
Sure. And again, these are just suggested titles. There might be one that's better. Economic development is about what does it look like for this group to be involved in creating and supporting opportunities for residents to either individually or collectively grow revenue, whether that's what business opportunities are there, how can business opportunities be supported, how can different sorts of investments be directed to the community, what would that look like? And then land and property is really about securing and protecting the land and property that's in the community. So obviously one of the ways that gentrification works is people who've lived in the community for a long time and maybe own their home, but they're being challenged with keeping it together. There are other communities that say, if there's a person who's lived in this neighborhood for more than 20 and 30 years and they're having problems holding on to their home, how can we support them to make sure that they keep that home, they make sure they keep that property, and it's not purchased out from under them and we get new people moving in. So it's just looking at those things so that the sovereignty of the community can remain intact.
Okay, thanks.
Speak.
Say, before Mr. Hardy speak, remember the steps that we did on the chart? Can you send that, email that to me so we be able to use that and work with our mission and vision?
Yes, I have a note down to make sure
Okay,
that you get
thank
that. Thank you. Mr. Hardy, were you going to say something, sir?
Yes, I'd just like to say,
First,
may the most high,
can they hear you?
may the most high's peace and blessings be upon you all, and may be pleased with our efforts.
Thank you.
Hardy, we
Any-
can't hear you.
Thank you for speaking to me. Gosh, didn't know it was a crime to say if you were. Man, you got me looking crazy.
Was that it, or? Okay. Well, if that is it, if there are no other comments or questions,
I have one other request, if you will,
yes, sir.
that we talked about the youth initiative. The folks who are on that particular committee, could you send me those names?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, I have you, Sheriff Miller, and Ms. Shirley as the ones so far who stepped up for that. Is there anyone else who wanted to be part of the youth? Am I missing anybody? Okay. All right. Well,
Well,
I would,
because we work with, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to wrap up. So please finish, Ms. Mildred.
Well, because we work with kids at the Grant Center, if I'm needed, Sheriff Miller and Ms. Whiteside, I am willing to assist you with the youth.
Okay,
Beautiful.
but I just need addresses and emails so I can do my job. Since I volunteered, I can't do it if I don't have.
Hurry. We'll make sure you have what you need.
Okay.
Yes, Shavonda.
Hey, can we get the meeting notes from those 3 meetings in like a shared drive?
Yes. What I'll do is I'll move everything into a folder, and then I will share that with all the folks on this call. And then and that'll be where all of the notes and everything are kept, so that people can have an archive and go back to see what's been done and said. Yes.
All right, thanks. I think that'll be helpful.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Sheriff Miller, is he still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we get together at a later date to discuss the public safety?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it looks like we're good to go with that. Just a reminder, our meetings are the 3rd Thursday of the month, which means the next one will be on the 17th of February. There'll be emails going out before then as well. But thanks so much to everybody who participated, and those of you who were here for the entire duration of the meeting. It's a lot to do, but we're moving forward. We just take it one step at a time, put one foot in front of the other, and do this work, because it's very important. And if we don't do it, then it's not going to get done, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
Right on. Well, thank you so much to everyone. I'll let us all go so we can enjoy the rest of our evenings. Everyone stay safe and healthy and warm. Hopefully we don't get too much snow in the next couple of days. Yeah.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Good
Y'all
night.
done a great
night.
job. That's what I'm
Thank
talking
you.
about.
Good night.
Just gotta keep
See
that
you next
bond and
month.
love going.
Good
It'll
night.
work out.
Right on. Thank y'all so much.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.